Vineet, thank you so much for joining us. How is this year's ground view different from when you had it the last time round for the hospitality sector?
So we are doing the hospitality conference actually after a long gap. I recollect that we did it at Taj Lands End about 4 years ago. And after that, the sector itself went into a bit of a disfavor because the tourism was not doing well and the average room rates were not picking up. There was a lot of supply that came in. So it fell out of favor as far as investors are concerned. This time around, we think there are some green shoots that are visible. We think that hospitality could be at the cusp of an exciting time if you look at the next 3 to 4 years, and therefore we thought we should be one of the first ones to pick it up.
Okay, what are the three key trends that you're picking up from this sector?
So one trend that is quite visible is the fact that the travel has become very affordable, right? Which is on the back of a strong dollar. It's on the back of lower fuel prices, and that entire affordability to travel has improved significantly, both for foreign travelers as well as for the local, which means people move around faster and more. I was reading somewhere that this time around as many as 8 million foreign tourists are going to be in India. It's not a large number if you look at the percentage as compared to the total global volume of foreign travelers, but it's growing at a decent rate for the last 5 years. So that's one trend that is quite visible. The other trend that is quite also visible is the fact that the supply is not coming as fast as it was after the Lehman collapse. Therefore, there is a steady demand and there is no mad supply that is getting added, which means that there will be a price point which would make the entire profitability of hospitality sector change a lot. And finally, one of the other trends that we are also seeing is the fact that domestic travel is increasing leaps and bounds because, there are different trends. There are women travelers, for example, which is a new thing that we are seeing. The young techies, they want to go out, on short trips or short travel plans. So these are the trends that are happening on the back of obviously something which we know is cutting across our lives every day, which is digitization. Right, so the way the hospitality sector is reaching out to people, you and me, is so much different than what it was 5 years ago.
Okay, and within the hospitality sector, so there are several segments. There's leisure, there's the mid segment, there's budget. What is the segment that you feel is most exciting?
So from the from the type of companies that we cover and track, corporate travel is very interesting because they always aim for structured hotels as against resorts or lodges or or shacks, which common man will look for if it is a leisure travel. So corporate travel and corporate corporate hotel accommodation is important as far as what we are aiming at. And the other one is of course budget hotel because of the affordability price point that has come about. There are a variety of aggregators, as you know. Oyo Rooms is one such startup which is also indicative of the fact that there is an attempt that is being made to make hotel stays that much more affordable in the budget category.
Okay, if I'm a retail investor, why should I invest in stocks which are in the hospitality sector?
I think it's just the way the consumption is changing, right? So the consumption basket, when we talk about in India, is changing at different levels, right? The consumption can be played, in the form of FMCG, right? Consumption can be played in the form of the way you do up your house. Right, so it could be the type of paint you want to use and the type of honey you want to eat, but also in terms of aviation and travel. Right, so one of the consumption points that is visible for the man of today or the woman of today is the way they spend money on eating, traveling, and staying in the hotels. So that's also a reflection of consumption. So if the broad driver of the Indian economy is going to be consumption, then even aviation and tourism should do well.
Okay, 3 key takeaways from the conference today.
First was that the sector has been struggling with high taxation. There are apparently pain points that many of the industry experts pointed out, which relates to very high incidence of tax. The second was the abolishing of the dual rate tariffs that used to happen some time ago, where there was a dollar rate for the foreigners and there was an INR rate for the domestic user or the domestic guest. It got done away with, and it is, I think, coming back to haunt them because rupee has depreciated, and there has been no joy in terms of capturing that depreciation of rupee. The third key takeaway that came out was obviously the debt. Many of the hotels who were expanding in a mad rush in between 2007 to 2012 undertook a lot of dollar borrowings, and those dollar borrowings has really come to bite them as far as the profitability is concerned. So these were some of the takeaways that got discussed.
It's interesting you talk of debt because that has also led to a lot of M&As happening in the sector.
Yes.
How do you think the M&A landscape is changing as far as the sector is concerned?
I think there are two trends that are becoming visible. One is that there will be some kind of consolidation. Right, it is happening at the global level in hospitality. It is also happening in India, right? Some of the foreign operators who have got merged, like the Starwood and Marriott, that would have an impact on the portfolio that they hold in India. Also, there are attempts that are being made by the existing hoteliers to perhaps monetize some of the properties that they don't want. Right, so there is an attempt, for example, for people not to be in all segments. So the luxury hotel guys who thought budget hotels should be added on may take a decision to get out of budget and just remain in luxury segment itself. So there are different different styles in which the consolidation that could come about. You could move to a pure play. You could move to increasing the number of properties that you hold, and thirdly, you could just face the impact of a global consolidation that may happen offshore.
Okay, what are the kind of large investors, particularly strategic ones, that might want to see the Indian hotel sector as a key area of investment?
It is, in fact, that got covered by one of the panelists in the morning session today, that FDI, which is now permissible up to 100% in hotels, is something that could be the new wave or the new gush that could come about, because if India were to move up in its ranking as a tourism destination, especially if we take care of infrastructure and our safety standards, then there is a great likelihood that the foreign capital may come in here to acquire new properties, to consolidate, or perhaps even get into some greenfield ventures.
There's always been a debate about including tourism within the infrastructure sector itself. Do you think there's any merit in that debate?
I think there is merit in the fact that there is greater government focus that is needed in reviving the tourism. Okay. Right, so the way many countries have done, perhaps they are smaller in size and therefore easier to do and quicker to do, whether it is Cambodia, Vietnam, Bali or Sri Lanka. But clearly we all believe that India has great rich cultural heritage. It has got resources and natural landscape which is fit for tourism. Unfortunately, we have not looked at in a very comprehensive manner as to how we should promote tourism. Some steps were taken to abolish the visas for certain countries, which is a step in the right direction. But then that alone was a solitary step, and nothing much happened. So we need to take a very integrated approach to promote tourism in this country. And if that were to come about, we should not be surprised if the foreign travel just continues to increase.
So, two or three key changes that you would want to see, the government bringing in to sort of give that fillip to the sector.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a nice one. One is taxation, because I think that affects the profitability and perhaps the unfair treatment that the hospitality sector believes that that they're being meted out. So taxation is clearly is a federal government subject, so they should look at it. Second is a broader and a comprehensive way of looking at promoting tourism. Right, enough is being done in the civil aviation side to to expand the network and reach of the domestic airlines. So that's a good step in the right direction. And thirdly, I guess if there is a way in which we could improve the infrastructure, because there are several beautiful tucked away locations in India which could actually be a great investment opportunity, because the average room rate realization in such eclectic, exotic locations could be far higher than an urban budget hotel, for example.
Okay, two or three things that you think that hoteliers are not getting right.
I think what the hoteliers have to think about very clearly is there a way in which they should balance the and I'm talking about the 5-star and the luxury segment hotels, about the restaurants that they carry or they run, right? So you have seen in the last 5 years that there is a clear trend towards good food which is not necessarily 5-star. Right, so 20 years ago, when you wanted to celebrate any occasion in the family, you just carried along the whole family to a 5-star hotel, and that was a great treat. But the person of today, and I'm not talking about a 21-year-old alone, but even a 45-year-old person would like to celebrate their anniversary in a place which is really buzzing, and that could just be a standalone, restaurant. And great food is being meted out, great ambience and music and all of that. So the hospitality sector has to understand the number of restaurants that they run, and whether there is an optimal number and the optimal cuisine that they should be just catering to. So they need to move with this changing time, that having 11 restaurants or having 5 restaurants is not necessary, because the guest is not interested. More importantly, there is also an attitude by people, both domestic as well as foreign, that eating out, even if you are staying in a luxury hotel, is not necessarily dangerous from the point of view of safety and hygiene. So you could stay in a luxury hotel but step out, even as a foreign tourist, to the happening place, to eat. So they need to get this thing right in terms of what should be the right mix. And of course, then they need to think about whether there is a way in which they can reintroduce the dual tariff system to capitalize on a very strong dollar and therefore a very weak rupee kind of an outlook, for future. And thirdly, whether there is a way in which they could now start moving their average room rate. I was told that in a luxury hotel in South Bombay, the price of a particular room was 28,000 rupees in 2007, and it is 28,000 rupees even today.
Okay, finally, what is your outlook for the sector, say for 2016?
I think if the balance sheet could be worked upon by the hospitality sector in terms of managing the debt, either by monetizing some of the assets that they don't need, or injecting new equity to retire the expensive debt, that is something that I would like to see. I would also like to see whether they can manage the cost better, because in India there is also an attempt and a trend, or perhaps a legacy, that we throw too many bodies behind serving a guest in the hotel. I was being told that in New York, for example, an 80-seat standalone restaurant can be managed by 5 waiters, whereas in Bombay we would need as many as 25. So there is a way and a deep thought that needs to go in terms of developing the skills of our people so that they can be more productive and efficient. If all of that were to come about, and I have to take a 3-year view, I am quite excited about this particular sector.
All right, Vineet. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.